get into something here that concerns us all. It concerns me because I have a little daughter. It concerns you because many of you have children, and if you don't, maybe you will someday, or maybe you have grandchildren, or maybe you have nieces and nephews, or somebody young that you care about. If you don't care about anybody young, then you don't need to listen to this, because basically my philosophy is, if you don't care about anybody that's young in this country, then we just flat don't care about you. What do you think about that? I'm going to be talking about the National Education Association. And it is important, ladies and gentlemen, that you listen to every word that I'm going to tell you. You see, people look around in this country for an enemy and they can't find one. They can't find one because the enemy is all around you, but you don't perceive them as being an enemy because they don't project it. You see, everything that's happening to us is not happening from without, it's happening from within. It's a grab for power. The watchwords of the French Revolution were liberty, equality, and fraternity, which at first sound quite commendable, don't they? The words that actually began the French Revolution were, and I quote, "Now is the time," end quote. If you look around, you'll see those words being used more and more in this country, and it will surprise you exactly who is using them. I'll say it again for you so you can listen for it. Quote, "Now is the time," end quote. See, our forefathers were escaping from tyranny. They were escaping from religious persecution. They were escaping from persecution by kings and queens and despots. They were escaping from British Freemasonry. They were escaping from what was taking hold on the continent, which caused the French Revolution, which eventually became known as socialism. You see, Marx didn't invent socialism. It was a long, long time before he came along. He just put it into words. He wrote down the tenets of socialism. There's a battle going on underground between power groups. And there are four main groups, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm not going to go into that tonight because I've done it many, many times. I want to talk about the N.E.A. tonight, the National Education Association. The watchwords of the French Revolution were liberty, equality, and fraternity. By liberty was meant license to do your own thing. Morality, rebelling against authority. By equality was not meant equal opportunity, but a leveling of the masses under philosopher kings and elite, including educational, who through social engineering would shape a socialistic society. And by fraternity was not meant a brotherhood based upon the Holy Bible or based upon the kinship of human beings, but rather a humanistic brotherhood based upon what all ethical systems have in common, headed by a master race who consider themselves to be the only truly mature minds in the world, and the other races and the masses of people are the children to be taken care of by these councils of wise men, they call themselves. Now, humanistic education is religious proselytizing of students in opposition to biblical beliefs, and it's evident from a statement by John Dewey, who was the co-author of the first Humanist Manifesto, coincidentally published in 1933. And if you really think it's a coincidence, you better think again. He was also the honorary National Education Association president, ladies and gentlemen, in 1932. In religion and our schools, published in the Hibbert Journal in July 1908, John Dewey said this, and I quote, "Our schools are performing an infinitely religious work. They are promoting the social unity out of which, in the end, genuine religious unity must grow. Religion, associated with dogmatic beliefs, we see disappearing. It is the part of man to labor persistently and patiently for the clarification and development of the positive creed of life, and to work for the transformation of all practical instrumentalities of education till they are in harmony with these ideas," end quote. John Dewey was a 33rd degree Freemason of the Scottish Rite. It's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry that promoted the National Education Association, promoted public school systems run by state governments, and now has promoted the United States Department of Education to turn all of our kids over to Big Brother. We've got all of their publications over all these years to prove every word that I just said. Coincidentally, their magazine used to be called The New Age. The non-dogmatic positive creed of life, which Dewey would come to call a common faith, was like the humanistic brotherhood and sisterhood of the French Revolution, also brought about by Freemasonry. And the N.E.A. has been perhaps the organization most responsible for furthering the principles of the French Revolution in the United States in this century. Folks, the chronology of this labor union during all this time is absolutely incredible. And I'm going to give you some of it tonight. I don't have time to give all of it to you, but I have some time to give you some of the important points and dates so that you too can become illumined, shall we say? 1906. On June 30th, the National Education Association becomes federally chartered or incorporated under H.R. 10501, Public Law Number 398. The National Education Association had been founded in 1857, but until 1870 was called the National Teachers Association. How many of you knew that? The N.E.A. begins to promote the training of teachers in sex education and sex hygiene. Guess what year that was? 1912. 1912. The N.E.A. began to promote the training of teachers in sex education and sex hygiene. In 1913, the N.E.A. established the Commission on the Reorganization of Secondary Education, which had a membership including several young rebels of the era. The Commission produced a report in 1918 containing 7 cardinal principles or objectives for the education of every American boy and girl, including ethical character. In 1915, the Educational Trust, known as the Cleveland Group because its first meeting is in Cleveland, meets for the first time. Among the members of the group are George Strayer, a professor at Teachers College and N.E.A. president 1918 to 1919. Elwood Cubberley, Dean of Stanford University School of Education and leader of the Educational Trust. Charles Judd, a colleague of John Dewey, who received his Ph.D. from Wilhelm Wundt in Leipzig in 1896. In David Tyak's and Elizabeth Hansot's Managers of Virtue, printed in 1982, Judd is quoted as urging the Cleveland Conference to attempt, and I quote, the positive and aggressive task of a detailed reorganization of the materials of instruction in schools of all grades, end quote. Tyak and Hansot will also write, and I quote, there were placement barons, usually professors of educational administration in universities such as Teachers College, Harvard, University of Chicago, or Stanford, who had an inside track in placing their graduates in important positions. One educator